also riddled with troubling details. In his final year of law school, Duterte shot and wounded a fellow student that he accused of being a bully. Duterte never faced criminal charges. Despite this, he became a lawyer in 1972 and got married a year later. Over the next few years, Duterte would prepare to enter into the public sector. First, he set his sights on Davao City. In the 1970s and 80s, Davao City was known as the murder capital of the Philippines. It was an incredibly dangerous city where communist insurgents and government forces would openly kill each other in broad daylight. Duterte wanted to stop this by any means necessary. So he became a prosecutor for the city from 1977 to 1986. He worked to rid the city of criminal activity. He was so determined to lock up the very people he blamed for Davao City's crime rate that he was willing to do whatever it took, even if it meant breaking the law himself. Years later, he admitted that during his time as prosecutor, he and his team would plant information on criminal suspects to get them off the streets.
I've learned a lot during my prosecution days. We planted evidence. We arrested persons, but we released them, but telling him that it was this person who squealed on him.
This ruthless style of accomplishing his goals made Duterte a popular figure among Davao's population, and would become a common trend throughout his life.
He rose to power because he said he would get down and dirty to sort out the problems.
And then in 1988, he achieved his childhood dream, becoming the mayor of the city that he grew up in. He was elected on a platform focused on restoring peace and stability in Davao City. But shortly after he became mayor, bodies began to pile up in the streets. An armed vigilante group known as the Davao Death Squad began killing small-time drug dealers and petty criminals. Allegedly, the group also targeted Duterte's political opponents.
And pretty much scared the living daylights out of everybody in Davao so that everybody sort of behaved. Davao City remains the murder and rape capital of the Philippines.
But he continued to be re-elected. He was mayor of Davao for 7 terms, becoming one of the country's longest-serving mayors. And his brutal campaign to stomp out crime only escalated as his time in office grew. More than 1,400 people are believed to have died at the hands of the Davao death squads, including an outspoken Duterte critic and journalist. Years later, a former police officer who led the death squads came forward and accused Duterte of giving him the orders to kill. Duterte denied these allegations, saying they were lies. All the while, Duterte was having trouble at home. His marriage was dissolving. But in the Philippines, one of the only countries in the world to ban divorce, Duterte had to undergo a psychological assessment for the annulment of his marriage to be recognized by the state in 1998. That report was later leaked to the press, and it concluded that Duterte had a, quote, narcissistic personality disorder and a, quote, pervasive tendency to demean, humiliate others, and violate their rights. Nonetheless, he continued to impose his political will. And now, Duterte, a man who never lost an election, had a larger dream. A dream of taking his iron fist style of leadership nationwide. In 2015, Duterte announced his campaign to become the president of the Philippines. And he promised that if he was elected, he would execute 100,000 criminals and dump their bodies in Manila Bay. And he wasn't joking. Leading up to the presidential election, he even claimed responsibility for a number of extrajudicial killings, which drew little public criticism from other elected officials. Quite possibly because they knew his campaign for presidency was nearly unstoppable. And in May 2016, Duterte finally did it. He won the presidency in a landslide victory. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do during his campaign. He took his brutal Davao City anti-crime campaign nationwide, rebranding it as his war on drugs.
From day one, he launched into what became known as his war against drugs. And very quickly, a lot of people began to die in very nasty ways on the streets of the Philippines.
It allowed police officers and armed militias to work and kill with near impunity.
In destroying and perhaps killing the criminals, I will be there for you. I will never allow any military man or police to go to jail unjustly for performing his duties. That you have my
According to the investigative journalism project The Drug Archive, at least 4,279 people were killed in police operations in Duterte's drug war as of May 2018. Another 22,000 homicides are under investigation that were possibly linked to drugs, according to the government's calculations. But human rights groups and critics fear the death toll of Duterte's war is much higher than that. The president even joyfully compared his campaign to kill drug offenders to Adolf Hitler's extermination of millions of Jewish people.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. Now, there is 3 million, there's a 3 million drug addicts. There are. I'd be happy to slaughter them.
Despite this rhetoric, or maybe because of it, Duterte has been an incredibly popular president at home, enjoying as high as a 91% approval rating at times.
The one promise that he certainly hasn't broken was that the streets would flow with blood in the Philippines.
Regardless of the negative international response, Duterte remains determined to continue his bloody campaign until the very end.
My campaign against drug will not stop until the end of my term. That will be 6 years from now, until the last pusher and the last drug lord are...
Only time will tell how long Duterte will hold on to power. How do you think he'll be remembered? Let me know in the comments below and on Twitter. Thanks for watching Now This World.